Hello and welcome to the MLB DFS on the RotoRadar podcast. My name is Joshua Riemer, joined by none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Jared Block. Jared, how are you doing on this fine Thursday afternoon, sir?
Exhausted. For those who have been following along, I appreciate Josh handling a lot of the podcast responsibilities. I am now 3 days into a trip down to Florida for a wedding, so I am glad I'm able to actually step out, do a couple things for MLB, talk about this small slate. Was an awesome day of NBA playoffs last night, and hopefully we can get some back-to-back dubs for the MLB team today.
Yeah, it was a really good night for the really good day, I guess. It was the day product yesterday, so it was a really good day for the MLB product. Really smashed. I mean, it was really good to get those calls right, man. Those Cardinals were very easy and ended up resulting in Madison Bumgarner getting what is he got reassigned or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And so it was fun to watch Tommy Edman almost go for the cycle and definitely some good bets there. The only thing I can't believe is that like we got the Tommy Edman call right, and I forget who the other Cardinal bat was in our. I think it was Dylan Carlson, maybe. I don't know. There was another. Oh no, it was Wilson Contreras. That's who it was. Wilson Contreras and Tommy Edman, definitely the right calls. Arenado and Goldschmidt just failed on us, and I know you
Right.
knew about the Goldschmidt and Arenado spot because they were both definite BVP plays. They both had a lot of BVP against Bumgarner and seen them quite a lot in the past, and to not see them come through, not only not see them come through, but also see them get pinched hit for was major pain. Major pain. So that's all right. Like it was a win. Marcus Semien also really helped us towards that win too. So all around, a lot of good takes yesterday, and ready to move on into today's slate. And Alex Cobb, got to shout out the pitcher call because that was one of my better pitcher calls of the year so far. It feels like, even though he didn't go that deep, was definitely dominating that game for a long time. And I know a lot of the field went the Scherzer spot, which didn't pan out nearly as well as people hoped it would probably.
Right, I mean the Scherzer things, it's a whole other can of worms, so we'll get to that when we get to the Mets game, hopefully. So let's go ahead and talk about this 5-game slate here. This slate's going to start at 6:35 Eastern time, so just note that ahead of time here. Cincinnati, Pittsburgh going to be first. Right now, the Reds are plus 138 on the road behind Luke Weaver. The Pirates back at home outside of Coors now. They are minus 164 at home. Behind Roansy Contreras, 9 is the total for this game. Don't have too much weather to talk about today. This is going to be one of the hotter environments, 80 degrees, winds blowing in from right field, though, at about 9 to 10 miles an hour, so a little bit of a downgrade in some of those bats. Start with the Pittsburgh Pirates here, these bats going up against Weaver. Obviously, we saw them put up, close to 30 runs in the last couple of days. Pittsburgh seeing the ball well. Is it Coors, or is it something that can continue tonight?
I think it is a little bit based on cores, but obviously, if you're seeing the ball well, hopefully that translates over into this Pittsburgh park. Overall, I don't know. I think it's an okay spot to attack. I'm not going to diss it too much. I will say they also went up against two lefties, right? Like they went up against Freeland and they went up against Gomber, and that's where a lot of those runs came from. Going up against a righty, a not very good righty, but still a righty nonetheless, could potentially provide some problems for them. So I don't know. I'm pretty back and forth. I'm excited to see what Luke Weaver has. When we saw him last year, for the limited amount of time that we saw him last year, he was a pretty good pitcher. Like had a 4.35 xFIP, 20% K rate, ground ball rate was okay, hard contact was a little bit high, but still. I don't know. I think you can definitely go to some of these guys if you wanted to. Sawinski being a potential option. He's been red hot over the past few days. Feel like you're getting a pretty good price tag on him as well. Maybe a Ke'Bryan Hayes is the way you end up going because he's been on fire as well. But I don't know. I'm not jumping at the bit to get these Pirates into my lineup today.
Yeah, obviously they're not as important as they have been the last several days. This is going to be a slate that has quite a bit of offense that we can target here. They probably just fall off the wayside for that. Not going to go out of my way to really get there as well. That's really not. That's pretty much it. So I guess with that being said, though, do you have any interest in pitching Luke Weaver here as an SP2 option?
I don't think it's the worst idea ever. I think that we have a decent spot here. It's potentially a better spot on the other side with Roansy Contreras. So,
All right, let's go ahead and focus on the other side and talk about Ronzi and those Cincinnati hitters. Contreras 5.23 xFIP last season. This season it's around 5.72. The K rate's around 15%. Obviously, we'd like that K rate to go up more against lefties. The righties still struggling, obviously, almost striking out 30% of the time there. Ground ball stuff is still good to lefties, though. I think, in a spot where you'd want to try to find the offense that you want to attack at that SP2 level, Contreras does come in at a price tag of 6,400. I know some of the recent games this season haven't been good. One specifically not good against Houston, but did fare well against Boston and St. Louis, both. At least St. Louis more of a competent offense that actually has something to grasp onto and hold. So I think that this one here in this spot with the wind blowing in, I know it's still hot, but still think that he should be considered as an SP2 option. 6,400 is pretty solid.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. What I see here is two really formidable starts against two tough offenses on the road, too. St. Louis on the road start there. And then also that Boston start. Boston's still a decent offense altogether. Really, their struggle is pitching. Houston, no surprise there. I mean, they're one of the best hitting teams in the MLB, but you have this Cincinnati coming in. You have this Cincinnati team coming in with the 6th highest K rate in the MLB against right-handed pitching so far this season. They're not necessarily putting everything together. They have a few decent hitters throughout the lineup, but no one that's really going to end up scaring you. I could see this Ronzi spot really paying off for you. And I mean, I like the numbers that I've been seeing from him so far. I think the K rate has a lot of improvement to go. But the main thing for me is that he's limiting hard contact. And that's all I need to see to buy into this spot and feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also just about pitching or finding environments where pitching actually makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So on this slate where there's 5 games, I could, you can do. There are just landmine options in a lot of these spots, and I feel like attacking the Reds is as solid as one that we're going to have today. Maybe we can talk about some other things here, but I really only think that there's like 3 pitchers in play today.
For sure. Yeah.
Any prop-related things for this game? I'm not really too entirely stoked about any of it. Contreras has a 5 pitcher strikeout number. It feels like that number has been kind of a plague the whole season with a lot of pitchers. So if there's anybody that can get the job done against righties, it could be him. It does look like we're going to see a lot of at least lefties up in the top 3 in the top 7 for this Reds team today. So still looks like a solid spot. I feel like you probably just want to get the exposure to DFS and stay away from a 5 number.
Yeah, probably. I think the only prop that I'd be interested in is 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs for Slawinski. He's just been crushing the ball, man. It's like 30 plate appearances so far this year, and he has a 419 ISO, a 422 weighted on base average. The numbers are really solid, and something that I'd definitely be willing to attack there is that low number. They're not giving you good numbers for anything else, though. Like Brian Reynolds, 7.5 hitter fantasy score is okay, but 1.5 total bases, not all that interesting. Not giving us, oh no, they do have some key Brian Hayes numbers. I just want 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs, I think, rather than getting 1.5 total bases. Right. I will say Hayes' fantasy score number is solid. He's shown the capability to steal bags, so maybe you see him able to do that against Weaver, who doesn't necessarily have a good fastball option. And Stevenson's an okay defensive catcher, but definitely not the best.
Yeah, I like the hitter fantasy score there for Hayes. Last note I wanted to make, I obviously have been in and out with news here, but did we get news about Brian Reynolds getting ejected? Was that yesterday? Am I talking about the same guy?
I feel like I heard about this. No, I think you're right about Reynolds getting ejected, but I think you are right because I got upset about it that yeah, he did get ejected. So he was ejected yesterday. I guess he was arguing balls and strikes is the reason he got ejected. So maybe you see a little bit of revenge narrative there. Or he got the day off and he'll be rejuvenated for today's game.
Right. Yeah. Just a little bit something to note there. Maybe more of like a, hey, let's, settle in and have a good home stretch kind of thing. I don't know. We'll see. He had been struggling, so that maybe that was like the tip of, like, maybe that was just the final straw for him in that stint. So
for sure.
I don't know. Maybe he'll turn it around today. All right. Let's go ahead and focus on the next game here. Colorado and Philly. Right now, the Rockies are coming in as a plus 194 money line underdog behind Feltner. Strom for the Phillies minus 235 at home. 9 is the total here. This game, again, not in Coors, it's in Philadelphia, 72 degrees, winds blowing out to left at 5 to 7 miles an hour. At Citizens Bank Park, definitely like the spot that this game gives us, at least on one side of the ball. So let's go ahead and start talking about Feltner versus this Phillies offense, which I think is going to come in as a popular option to take a look at. Right now, this season, 2022 and 2023, for Feltner, 5.73 xFIP. In 2023, 23% K rate. The walk rate is kind of off the charts to both handedness to start off the year. Not really getting that many swinging strikes, 8% there. Not really giving up any hard contact either. That's the thing I want to talk to you about, because he has a really good ground ball rate. And I guess today is kind of just about finding this Philly offense that was very behind Trey Turner yesterday. And I think that you need to find guys that just don't hit the ball on the ground. And thankfully, some of the best bats on the team are guys that do that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you have Kyle Schwarber in this offense. Well, so not only are you looking for guys who don't hit the ball on the ground, you're also looking for guys that can generate their own hard contact, generally hard hitting players, because if he's limiting that hard contact, we need something to counter that. I feel like Kyle Schwarber is like the perfect option for you here. Don't mind going to Brandon Marsh as well. He's kind of getting BABIP lucky here, but like he's had an incredible start to the year and he looks on fire. So maybe that's another spot you can go to for a lefty. I would also say Bryson Stott would be another guy. I know that ground ball rate is high, but he's been getting a lot of hits recently too. I'm a little bit scared of these righties. Maybe it's the limited sample size, maybe it's not, but Feltner currently has a K rate of 29% against these right-handed hitters. So, and a lot of these righties are K heavy, right? You have Trey Turner at 25%, you have Castellanos at 33%, you have Real Muto at 34%. So like a lot of these guys are striking out a lot. I think you're taking a big GPP risk if you go those righties. It's a risk worth taking in tournaments. It's not worth taking in cash, most likely.
Yeah, I can get behind some of these guys, but like you said, I think that there's probably better options. Like I think that they are slightly better than the Pirates here, but I also think that there are at least two offenses that are better, and most likely a third that we can talk about here. Very, very concentrated spots for hitting today. I just feel like maybe people take a look at what Colorado had put together over the past 4 or 5 days against Pittsburgh. They got absolutely crushed in almost every single game. So I don't know. Maybe they think that it'll carry over today. I personally think that the Phillies can get there, but it also could come from like one guy, which is also kind of frustrating.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's go ahead and focus on the other side and talk about this Strom spot against Colorado. Remember, the Rockies leaving Coors definitely could be something that we could take a look at. Strom 4.74 xFIP over the last year or so. This season, obviously, is the most sample size we're going to have from him. Definitely has a very strong K rate to both handedness. The ground ball rate, a little bit lower than that, and he's generating some pretty high hard contact in a limited sample size. So these Rockies coming out of Coors isn't going to get any better for them here.
No, it's not. This is going to be a struggle spot for them against Strom. This is a team that strikes out a lot to lefties, especially their most competent batters. The McMahons of the world, the CJ Crones, Monteros, all of these guys have over a 30% K rate. You have some low K rates at the bottom of this lineup. I think Strom will do well here. The only thing I worry about with Strom is that this guy used to be a bullpen arm. Like he's not very used to being a starter, and you can kind of see that when you look at the game log so far this season. Hasn't gone above 5 innings so far. It went 2.2 in his last start against Cincinnati. Maybe that's because he got shelled a little bit, but still, you usually let a guy pitch past 2.2 innings if he's only given up 3 earned runs. So I don't know. I'm back and forth. I think Strom should do well here against this Rockies team. Usually when this Rockies team comes down from elevation, especially the first few games, they end up struggling because the ball doesn't move the same as it does at elevation. So a guy like Strom could take advantage of that. I just kind of go back and forth on whether Strom is actually going to be able to go deep enough to make this a really solid play today.
Yeah, and obviously, we've seen our ups and downs with pitching this week in general. And I think that on a slate where you're deciding between 10 pitchers and more importantly, probably just like 3 of them, I'm not sure. I'd feel a little bit better about Contreras, actually. I don't know. it's kind of a hit or miss situation. But at least Strom has a really good chance to get the win, which I think is important as well.
I will agree with the hit or miss part. That's the thing that I think you could take away from this the most. Hit or miss.
Yeah. All right. Anything prop related here? I guess probably only want to focus on like a Trey Turner or something like that. Which hitter fantasy score? I mean, he had a monster game yesterday. I could see you going back to the well here. It's not the best play in the world though.
Yeah, I don't mind going to hitter fantasy score, but 8.5 is definitely a high number to take. I don't know, kind of back and forth on that, whether I'd want something like that. Um, you're taking a kind of big risk, but like I feel like instead of Strom doesn't even have a fantasy number up, but I feel like this 5 pitcher strikeout number's pretty free generally. I think there's a pretty good chance of him hitting that, so don't mind that. Don't mind Marsh over 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs. Wish they had Kyle Schwarber 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs because that's what I would probably really want to take here. But I don't mind the Marsh play.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on here and talk about one of the more important games on the card. It's going to be the Dodgers and Cubs. Right now, the LA Dodgers are going to come in as a plus 114 money line underdog here behind Grove. Jameson Taillon and the Cubs minus 134 at home. The total's been anywhere from 11 to 10.5 here, and it's because of the weather today. Also want to note that it looks like we're going to most likely get a spot where they'll wait this game out just a little bit to let these storms pass that are coming through this afternoon. So we could get a little bit of a later start in Wrigley Field than if we get that and it's all clear to go. The wind should be enough to make this a must-play spot, which, again, that's the thing, right? You have to just make sure that they, a smart, competent Wrigley Field staff should know that they can just wait this thing out, and then it should be clear to go from there. Maybe not clear skies all the way around, but I do think that this game should be good enough to go. Do you see any postponement risk, or are you kind of along the same line there?
I'm along the same line. It's not like it's been raining a long time in Chicago today. It's literally just going to be this storm cell around 6 p.m. It's like a line of storms that come through. And then once that's gone, it's kind of clear weather throughout the rest of the night. So I think it's only going to rain for around like 30 minutes to an hour. And that's not enough to postpone a game. They'll end up playing this one out, especially with the Dodgers visiting town. Like, I think everyone knows how high profile of a matchup this is. And so, I expect them to play it out. I would be shocked if we saw a postponement on this one. And if that's the case, you're right. This is going to be a must-play spot for bats because of this wind blowing out at such a high velocity right now.
Yep, and we're just, we're at the mercy of talking about 5 games, and this is one you're going to want to have to build around. So I do think we'll go ahead and start with the Dodgers hitters against Taillon this season. Taillon has a 4.56 xFIP. The K rate's around 25%. Walk rate stuff isn't very good, and especially to lefties. So I think that's where you want to start right now. You kind of have to see where this lineup comes in at. I believe we're gonna have Outman leading off again here, and I know that there's also some there's some guys on this team that hit Taillon well. I was looking to see, do we have the lineup right?
Yes, we do.
I think I saw it come through. Did Chris Taylor make it by chance?
I don't think so. I doubt it.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
All good. I know that they're kind of like mixing guys in and out here with some of the stuff with Mookie, with some of the stuff with some injuries at the bottom of the lineup. So we're gonna get some interesting situations for these Dodgers hitters, but I think it does start obviously with Outman and Freeman at the top.
Just starts with all the lefties. I mean, these lefties are in such good spots today. That's really where Taillon has struggled this year. He's been pretty filthy against righties, actually. 35% K rate, ground ball rate good, hard contact good. This is a true splits pitcher where everything gets a lot worse when he faces off against left-handed hitters. The weighted on base average goes up a tremendous amount. He's giving up more hard contact. The ground ball rate goes all the way down to 25%. This is a spot that we want to get some exposure to. I think it is really simple how you build things today. You put Outman, Freeman, Muncy, and Peralta into your lineups and call it a day there. I think you try to get every lefty that you can out of this Dodgers lineup, and I don't think you have to think twice about it.
Yeah, I mean you can do that pretty easily on DK, especially if you go the Contreras SP2 route. I mean the pitching itself, I think you can even make some cases for maybe a couple other guys up top to where it makes a lot of sense. So I think that the Dodgers are way up there. You can argue that does it even really matter if if their top two stacks are in this game, and then you go from there. Whether or not the Cubs are number one, if or the Dodgers are number one, I think is irrelevant.
Sad that they didn't get Jason Hayward in here for the revenge narrative factor. I'm
That would
sure
have
they
been
will
fun.
some point over the weekend, so just keep an eye out for it. But him back in Wrigley is will be fun to watch whenever it does happen.
Yep, absolutely. On the Cubs hitter side of things, Grove is going to be pitching today. 4.18 xFIP over the course of this season. 24% collective K rate. Definitely has good numbers against righties. Um, I guess I'm just curious to see where you lean with these Cubs hitters here. I know they've actually had some good days in against Oakland and against this Dodgers team actually, and when they were on the road trip, and now they're obviously going to get a spot where the bats are in just a fantastic weather situation if all things go correctly, which they should. So, um, not that it's kind of already been played out, but I think the Bellinger stuff is really good here, and I think you have to just again, it's not really a matter of like what's the number one overall stack. It's more like this is the best game on the board.
Yeah, I agree. The problem with this Cubs team is that like you're going to want a lot of lefties here, and it's kind of the same thing with Grove as we talked about with Tyone, right? These very splits heavy pitcher. He's a little bit worse against righties. He gives up a good chunk of hard contact against them, but really want lefties against him at the end of the day. Lower ground ball rate against left-handed hitters, lower K rate, higher weighted on base average as well. So you want lefties here, but the problem is you only have two in the top five of the lineup, most likely. We don't have this lineup yet, but most likely you'll see Ian Happ and Cody Bellinger at the top of this lineup. I don't mind either one of them. I think they're both really solid plays, and I think they both can do damage here. But I'm not sure if I'm getting all that excited about the righties, especially with Grove's pitch type and what he brings to the table. He is mainly a slider pitcher against righties. He throws it like 60% of the time, which is pretty tremendous. You don't see many pitchers do that nowadays. It's because he has a really good slider. But all of these righties don't do well against the slider. So like it's kind of hard to get on board with anyone if he's just gonna consistently attack them with that slider. And we even saw him do pretty well in this matchup last time out. 5.2 innings, 6 strikeouts, 1 earned run. Didn't give up too much damage. So I think I'm just fine with only attacking the lefties and staying there.
Okay, so if we have to get into semantics, would you just say that obviously the Dodgers are number one, and is Chicago a close second, or is there more of a gap there?
I think there's more of a gap there. I don't think they're a close second. I think the Chicago team is probably good for a mini stack, and that's about it. Um, I think, yeah, I think they're good for a mini stack, and that's about it. I don't think I'd go much farther than that. We also have a really good Arizona game that we're about to talk about that I think is
Yeah.
going a little bit under the radar compared to what everyone thinks about this game. So, excited to talk about that one. And yeah, I think we'll have some other plays that we like in that one more than we like these Cubs plays.
Yeah, I mean it's a 5 game slate, and we don't have cores on it, but this is a cores equivalent for today, essentially that drives this slate. So I do think that you'll find edges here, and there's a team that has a team total that's relatively close to these others in San Diego. So and Arizona too. I shouldn't count them out. So let's go ahead and move on to that game and talk about it. Padres
Oh,
minus
before
144. Go
before we
ahead.
move on, do we want to talk prop stuff real quick for the Dodgers? Because
Sure.
there's some good
Yeah,
stuff
my
up
bad.
on the board. No, you're all good.
Yeah.
I just want to talk about this side because we have 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs for
Oh,
Peralta. We have it for Outman. We have it for Muncy. I really like those Outman and Muncy numbers, man. Those are probably two of my
so
favorite picks on the day, honestly.
yeah, I I wish that I had stopped you before you said that because I don't think Tyone's starting anymore.
Oh, no. When did this happen?
Yeah, it sounds like
Oh,
Javier Assad will start for the Cubs today.
Oh no, we got a bullpen situation. All right, we'll do some live research on Javier Assad. That is so sad. Yeah, scratch. Hopefully, no one put those in as I was talking. Uh, we'll do some live research on Javier Assad. I remember him.
Imagine everybody that got burned before, though, right?
Yeah,
Like that's
seriously, that sucks.
brutal.
That really sucks. Javier Assad has pitched already this year, had 4.1 innings. Actually, was pretty filthy in those 4.1 innings. 10 Ks per nine, 3.83 xFIP. Last year pitched in the MLB. xFIP was around 4.92. Let's see if I can get any pitch information for this guy. Yeah, that really sucks because that was easily one of the best spots on the day, and not to say that it still isn't, but I I doubt Assad's going to go nearly as deep as Tyone would have gone.
I mean, that changes the slate.
Yeah,
So
for sure. It definitely does. His ground ball rate was 38% last year. Throws 5 pitches, fastball, slider, curveball, changeup, and cutter, which is kind of tremendous at the end of the day. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see him. I can't give you. I want to see his splits last year. Uh, had some pretty heavy lefty righty splits where gave up a lot more damage to left-handed hitters. So I guess that the play still stands with Outman Muncy. I feel a lot less. I feel a lot better about if they were facing off against Tyone, obviously. But like I think the notion still stands that we want lefties, and we already wanted this game more for the weather than anything else too.
right.
So like as
Right.
long as Assad isn't an ace or anything, I think we should be fine here.
Yeah, I mean, you'd feel more comfortable with Tyone going 5+. Um, this I just don't know what we can do with that, right? Like I don't know what their
Yeah.
plan is outside of that.
Assad pitched 3 innings against Texas. He pitched 1.1 against Milwaukee. So, like, we've seen an array of stuff. Last season when he pitched, he got up to 5 innings. He got up to 6 innings once. So, like, maybe he can go as deep as Tyone was going to. Maybe he has the depth there. I'm just not sure how much they're going to work him today, I guess, is the main thing. Like, I have no clue on a pitch count number or anything. So, kind of up in the air.
Right. Okay. Well, that's a fluid situation.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and move on and see if we can get any more. The odds haven't reset yet, but once they do, I will give you that information. All right. Padres, Diamondbacks. I guess, yeah, we'll revisit that game until they kind of, because I'm sure that props will come out or new ones will come out after this
Mm-hmm.
or adjusted ones at that. So let's go ahead and focus on this next game, which actually, who knows, maybe turns into something more we need to concentrate on. So Padres -144 behind Michael Wacha. Nelson for the Diamondbacks +122 at home. 10 is the total for this game. So still something that we can really lock into here. These Padres, I think both teams definitely have viability here. We saw Arizona put up some really impressive numbers against that Cardinals pitching staff this past week, and then
Yeah.
obviously Padres are going to be in a good spot tonight. Let's go ahead and talk about them first, and talk about this spot for San Diego, which I think, now we have to kind of just reshuffle everything a little bit here. Maybe they get a little bit of a bump up compared to what we were looking at before. But going up against Nelson, 5.55 xFIP dated back to last season. This season, 5.35. Not much of a strikeout guy. Definitely has a solid ground ball rate, but allowing a lot of hard contact to go along with that. Don't have to worry about any weather here. And I guess let's just start with how the San Diego lineup's going to look.
Yeah, should be interesting to see how this San Diego lineup is going to look. I imagine, today is the day, as I've seen many of
Yes.
the San Diego beat reporters talk about. Fernando Tatis is going to be back in the lineup, going to be hitting
Yeah.
leadoff. Shout out to DraftKings for a tremendous mistake with putting him at min price 2,000 today. That's going to be a lot of fun. FanDuel did not make the mistake. They put him at 4,500. So you have to pay up quite a bit here. I think it is a good spot. I think it is, Ryan Nelson isn't necessarily a great pitcher. So I see no problems in going to the Tatis spot. I'm sure there's a lot of emotions put into this game, which maybe plays a factor in him not hitting all that well because of the emotions, but could also factor into him hitting really well too. So I
Right.
think there's upside, obviously, to the Tatis spot. The spot that I really wanted to talk about, though, is actually the Juan Soto spot. He's been talking a lot about how he hates the pitch clock and stuff, and how he's felt so off. He hasn't been able to get into a groove, into a rhythm quite yet. He had that home run yesterday, and then I saw this report about how a lot of the team was talking about, it's great that we got a win, but we're really happy that Soto's starting to get back on track. So if Soto is starting to get back on track, I think now's your time to jump on it. $3,500 price tag is so cheap in DFS, and I'm sure you could get some juicy props out there too. You want lefties against Nelson anyway, so like it's just a spot that makes sense. And I'm hoping that he's starting to figure out the pitch clock stuff and can finally get back to being Juan Soto, because I'm sure the people can see up on the board. You can't see it though, Jared. Currently batting 194 this season. Like
Yeah.
he hasn't been himself quite yet, and I think he can probably return to that today, most likely.
Yeah, yesterday was good to me in terms of that. Obviously, wrote Soto up as my BVP play of the day.
Nice.
Ended up working out pretty well. And yeah, I think that the biggest thing that I want to just make sure, and maybe we don't have that early enough today. Seems like something they would want to announce sooner than later. But if Tatis is in the lineup and he's hitting leadoff, I feel much more comfortable about Soto, and Soto should feel more comfortable too because of um, how much more pressure is off of him in that situation. I think that he
Yes.
can kind of come in and try to dial in and be a guy that locks in at the number 2 spot. It's just tremendous pressure off of a situation like that when you put a guy like Tatis back in the lineup. So yeah, I like the Soto spot quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Soto spot is definitely elite. It's really good. Tatis spot is good on DraftKings. He's a must play over there. They're just forcing your hand at the end of the day. They're saying you've got to play him in cash because of that price
Yep.
tag. Um, kind of surprised. Oh no, they did. They're going to put Cronenworth. Hopefully they put Cronenworth in the lineup. I don't mind any lefty here, right? Like you can get Carpenter, you can get Cronenworth. You can even go towards the bottom of the lineup and get a Grisham that's been really hot, honestly. He's been hitting the ball really well to start out the year. So there's a lot of good lefties in this lineup, and I think it gives you that contrarian option if maybe you don't want to rely on Javier Assad and that Dodgers team.
Right. Okay. Let's talk about the other side here and talk about these Arizona Diamondbacks that, again, like I said, have been surprisingly just, they still stand at the top of the NL West right now. And I think that this is a spot where they're going to have to prove against other NL West teams that they can go head to head with certain situations. Michael Wacha, though, I think is a spot where we can attack these Arizona hitters. 5.13 xFIP this season. The K rate is pretty good. Is actually really good to lefties. Not as good to righties. And I just feel like you're going to look for guys that are hitting lefty on this Arizona team that hit the ball well in the air and don't strike out as much, which you're probably going to have a little bit of both there. But at least we can take a look at guys like Rojas and Marte at the top of this lineup.
Yeah, Rojas, Marte, two solid options. Corbin Carroll as well. Really, what you see from Wacha is that he throws two pitches against lefties. It's mostly fastball, changeup. Sometimes he works a cutter in there as well, but mostly just fastball, changeup. Four-seam changeup is what I mean. That four-seam is where he's giving up a lot of damage. It's not a very good four-seam. It's like in the low 90s right now. This is a pitch that a lot of this team smashes. I mean, Josh Rojas hits it really well. Corbin Carroll hits it really well. Ketel Marte, in the little bit of data that we have from him, has a lot of hard contact against the pitch. So I really like the lefties here. I think both sides are going to see a lot of offense. I think there's just a lot of upside here. And knowing that Wacha isn't necessarily the fastest pitcher, and knowing that this Padres team, having Nola behind the plate, not necessarily the best defensive catcher in the world, I think this team could be running a lot tonight. You could see Carroll steal a few bags. You could see Rojas steal a few bags. So I really like these lefties. There's a lot of upside to them.
Yeah, I think that, maybe we do have to bump Arizona up a notch here with what's potentially going to happen with some of these bats in the Cubs game. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little bit overreactionary to the news, but you can say that San Diego's probably a better stack than those Phillies, and maybe you can even put Arizona over that too.
I think you can put Arizona over that Cubs team probably. I don't think that's a bad option. Like I like both sides, but I think at the end of the day, the Cubs have two hitters that I want. This Arizona team has three at the top of the lineup, and you could even go to the bottom of this lineup. If Palvin Smith makes the lineup, he has been crushing since they've been putting him in there. So don't mind going that way. Alec Thomas hit a home run yesterday. He's starting to see the ball really well. So I don't know. It's definitely a worse situation, a worse ballpark, and a worse bullpen to go up against. But this Arizona team does have some pluses all around the lineup. So I
Sure.
don't mind it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at some props. Have they dared to put up any Tatis stuff?
They did 7.5 fantasy score. I love it, man. I mean, it's going to take a
He's
steal
gonna
and
steal it right away.
yeah, he's going to instantly go grab a bag. So
Yeah.
I love this Tatis number at 7.5. It is way too
Yep.
juicy. It feels a little trappy, but still I like it.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah. Carpenter at 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs. Any lefty I want. I talked about that already, so don't mind taking him. And then you only get Soto at 8 fantasy score, and 6.5 runs, I probably stay away from such a high number. Though he has been walking a shit ton so far this season. So maybe he gets there off of walks alone. And if they had the number over on underdog, I'd probably be more willing to take the fantasy score on underdog than prize picks, just because of them elevating that walk number a little bit over there.
Yeah, we know that if Tatis is in the lineup, I think that's maybe I don't know. I feel like again Soto's going to be in a much more in a position where maybe he's walking a lot right now because he is the guy that people don't want to pitch to.
It's a good
I don't
point.
know,
Yeah,
but
no,
now
they can't.
maybe that regresses a little bit, but still that doesn't mean we avoid the fantasy number. It means we just take him because we think he's going to hit the ball. So,
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I
um,
mean, maybe he's not the guy. They can't walk him anymore because yeah, it makes 100% what you're saying, and you're right in saying that it's still a good number to take regardless. It's just
yeah,
whichever way you view it.
exactly. Cronenworth 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs there as well if he's in the lineup today. So that's a nice
Yes.
one. Okay. Anything on Arizona's side?
Looking
Diamondbacks.
at that now, we'll pull that up here.
The
Diamondbacks,
Rojas number kind of intrigues me if they have something.
1.5 hits, runs, RBIs. So I don't
Okay.
mind it. They weren't scared enough to give us a Corbin Carroll number. They gave him 7.5 hitter fantasy score. I like that a lot. They have if Alec Thomas gets a bump up in the lineup, then they have his hits, runs, RBIs. I don't mind that.
Yep.
Ketel Marte has a 6.5 fantasy score, so that's not the worst option in the world, but probably a little bit too. I don't know. I just probably wouldn't take his fantasy score number. I like some of these props for sure, but they probably end up being like the tail end of slips instead of like plays that I'm focused in on.
Yeah, the Diamondbacks one's for sure. Yeah, I agree there. Padres are more of your play them in a 2-pick or a 3-pick on underdog. So,
For sure.
all right, let's go ahead and move on to the last game on the slate, and then we'll go back to Dodgers Cubs whenever we get to that. Mets and San Francisco Giants. Right now, the Mets are coming in as a -122 road favorite behind Senga. Mania for the Giants gets the start here, +104 at home. 8 is the total for this game. Not going to mention too much about this wind here. I know it is there, but again, anything below 15 miles an hour, we don't really care about for San Francisco unless it's blowing in. So, kind of just mitigated by that. So, I think that on a slate that doesn't have very much pitching, people are going to gravitate to the most expensive guy on the board, and that's going to be Senga today. Clear head and shoulders above everybody else, and I know Mania is up there with him on DraftKings specifically. So, is this the game we're going to have pitching as a priority?
Oh man, I think so, but I'm just saying there's like you got to pick a pitcher today, right? You only have 10 on the board.
Yeah,
There's not a lot to
unfortunately.
love. So Senge might be your guy today. Senga might be your guy today, but just saying there's a lot of red flags here, man. Like, while this Giants team is striking out at one of the highest clips in the MLB against right-handed pitching, they're also doing a really good job of seeing the ball well. They're also generating a lot of offense. Their weighted runs created above average is also one of the highest in the league against right-handed pitching, currently ranked second best right behind Tampa Bay. So while they're striking out at a 27% clip, they're also walking. They're hitting the ball really well. They're hitting the ball hard, too. And we just saw Senga get kind of roughed up by this Oakland team. So
Right.
I don't know. I'm so iffy on this. I think you can go either of two ways. I think in GPPs, you have a great opportunity to fade this super chalky spot. I think in cash games, you probably just end up playing Senga and calling it a day. But, like I mentioned, definite red flags there.
I think it comes down to something as simple as can your pitcher get you 30 fantasy points today? That seems
Yeah.
like a low number, but we've seen it, man. Like this whole week has been crazy, and injuries aside, right? I mean, the guys that get injured or random things happen, Max Scherzer stuff, all that's crazy. But I still feel like you have this, at least so far, this first 30 days of the year, just unbelievable variance when it comes to guys trying to get 30 fantasy points. And I think that if they can get him, like who else on this slate? We'll talk about Mania and where I actually really don't like the spot that he's coming into here. But again, this is like one of the best park factories for a pitcher on the board, and the rest of the guys you can make cases for everybody that there's just not a lot of good pitching options today. So yeah, I don't know. I struggle to get with Senga, but I understand you might just be boxed into a corner.
Yeah, I think that truly is the case. Is the box into the corner thing? I don't know. It's just hard to not play this play when you know the board that we currently have with pitching today.
Right. Okay. These Mets bats, I don't think are going to get talked about too much today. Um, but I do think so first of all, where are you at in terms of how you feel about Sean Manaea this season? Because he kind of fell off a cliff towards the end of last year.
Yeah, he fell off a cliff towards the end of last year, but we are seeing him start to work back up to what he used to be. They've got to work his pitch count back up because who was he with last year? The Athletics, right? Did he get traded?
Uh,
I don't remember.
Padres.
Padres, whoever it was, they were using him as a bullpen arm. So like how like starting pitching and relief pitching work is like obviously if you get worked down into a relief role, you can't just automatically go back into that starting role, and it usually
Right.
takes a little bit of time. So what we've seen from this Giants team is they usually pair him up with someone. We've seen multiple guys that they've paired him up with to end up kind of piggybacking off of his start and end up taking a good amount of the innings. Kansas City's the only start where he actually had enough stuff where they felt he could go further than that 5 that they've kind of been prescribing him to. But we saw back in Detroit, he went 3.1, and then we saw a big arm come in afterwards. I don't know how deep he's going to go in this game. I don't think it's a very good matchup. I think this Mets team is just bound to get lucky at some point. And the reason for that is they've been getting very unlucky. BABIP-wise, they're one of the worst BABIP teams in the MLB. For those who don't know how BABIP or what BABIP is, it's batting average of balls in play. Essentially, just tells you how lucky or unlucky you're getting with your hits. Are a lot of your hits finding the gloves of infielders and outfielders, or are you getting hits in the gaps and getting hits out of the infield? With this team being such an unlucky team and with how talented they are, I think it's only a matter of time before that BABIP ends up positively regressing. And if that's the case, then I don't want to be taking pitchers against them, especially a middling guy like Sean Manaea that I don't really feel like you can trust in here. So I'm fine to stay away. I have no interest here.
I will just give a shout out to Tommy Pham if he makes the lineup. He will be a guy that has some BVP here. Eduardo Escobar, similar boat. But at least the Pham stuff, 5 for 9 lifetime with 2 home runs. So there's something there. It's not great. And I just feel like, it kind of just goes both ways. I feel like you probably get Kanya in the top of the lineup. I mean, I don't know. I just doesn't scream roster me here. It feels like a stay away, but you're using this game as your pitcher spot.
Yep.
One thing we should note, though, DraftKings don't play Manaea at 9,900.
No. And I mean, even on FanDuel, you have him at 8,600. Like, are you getting that excited about that price tag? I don't think so.
Right. So I'm not interested in props for this. I guess if we found a Manaea number, we could take the under of it if it was something we could take a look at. But I wanted to just go down the list on the pitching group today and that's kind of use that as our final thoughts and wrap it into the Dodgers-Cubs game. So Senga clearing away should be your top overall options by default. That's kind of how I see that today, even though the win is certainly not in the books. Like, he's a -122 road favorite here against a Giants team that I think can always upset somebody if they're the underdog. So there's that. And then Manaea, way too expensive on DK on both sides, frankly. We don't know what his leash looks like. Waka, we respect some Arizona bats. I could see people playing Waka as an SP2 option because of the way this slate shapes out. But again, we named a lot of red flags there. Tyone got scratched. Ryan Nelson, you're not playing him. We love San Diego today. Grove, do you really want to play Grove against Chicago? No.
No.
And then you come down to the guys we talked about earlier. Strom, Contreras, even Weaver seems a little bit more competent now after talking about some of this stuff. So terrible slate for pitching. And then I think that the offenses are pretty concentrated, and we kind of talked about that.
Yeah, you said it perfectly at the beginning of the show, right? There's 3 pitchers that we can focus on. Senga is one of them, obviously. Strom's number 2 and kind of makes the case of pitching over Senga at a certain point. Like, I know we're a little bit worried about how deep he's going to go, but we also have to remember that this Phillies team is coming in as -200 favorites, the biggest favorites on the board. So can feel a little bit better about that win. Don't feel like he's going to get the quality start most likely, so that doesn't matter as much. And then Roansy Contreras is your number 3 because Contreras brings in that upside of also getting the win. He's a minus 165 favorite. This number has moved a lot too. It was started out at 125. Bettors have moved it to minus 145, or minus 165. Sorry, so it's moved 40 points already. With it moving 40 points, I think that I really like the Roansy spot. So Strom, Roansy, Senga. I think Strom's a lot closer to Senga than a lot of people are going to give him credit for today, and maybe that's the edge we have on the field.
Definitely. Yeah, not the best slate in the world. Obviously, tomorrow's going to be great. Yesterday's afternoon slate was awesome. Thursday's just a travel day for almost the entire league, and so we're gonna get these smaller slates on Thursdays, and you're gonna have unexpected things like pitching changes midway through the afternoon. So, anything else you want to discuss for the Dodgers Cubs game? This game is actually now at an 11 total, where it was at 10.5, and I forgot exactly where the Dodgers were, but they're technically the underdog now.
Yeah, I think they were at minus 115. At least in opening, they were at minus 115.
I mean,
and
still shifted like 20, 30 points then.
yeah, easily. I'm surprised they're projecting the Cubs to win this, to put up so many runs. I don't see it nearly as much as Vegas does, but yeah, I like this. I still like this Dodgers team. I think I'm just going to take that same approach with the lefties. From what I've seen from Javier Assad, it's nothing to be super scared of in terms of his proficiency against left-handed hitters. So I'm fine with sticking out those props and sticking out those plays. And I'm still on the same side against Michael Grove. I'm not all that excited about that offense, but I do like Hap and I do like Cody Bellinger, and that's probably it. But we can get out of here.
All right. Yeah, let's go ahead and get out of here. Obviously, we'll have a bigger card tomorrow. Exciting NBA playoffs, and just enjoy the night.
Yes, sir. Exactly. All right. Thank you all for listening. As always, my name is Joshua Riemer. Good night and good skill.